Okay, so today we're going deep on marriage.
Uh-oh.
But like from a faith perspective,
Interesting.
yeah, we're looking at this podcast called The Divine Design of Marriage, Unpacking God's Blueprint. It's from a show called The Sunshine Inside.
Okay.
And it really got me thinking, like, is there actually a divine blueprint for marriage?
Well, it's a fascinating concept for sure.
Right.
And this podcast, they go straight to Genesis 2.24,
Oh, okay.
where it talks about a man leaving his family and becoming one with his wife.
All right. One flesh.
Yeah, exactly, one flesh.
And it's like right away they're saying this isn't just something,
Yeah.
humans came up with.
Right.
It's like the first thing God created
Yeah, the first institution, right.
after creating everything else.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like right after creation, there's marriage. So they're really setting this up as something important.
Yeah, it's huge.
And, they keep using this term like divine covenant.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What's the difference?
Oh, covenant versus contract.
Yeah.
Big difference, right?
Yeah.
So a contract is like you're agreeing to something,
Right.
there's a way out.
An escape clause.
Exactly, an escape clause. Whereas a covenant, that's meant to last.
It's unbreakable.
Unbreakable, yeah, like till death do us part, you're committed.
Wow. That's serious stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So like making a vow, you're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely, no matter what. And they even brought up Malachi 2.16,
Okay.
where it says God hates divorce.
Right.
But, you have to understand the context of that, right?
Yeah.
This was a time when divorce was like super casual.
Oh, okay.
Like any little thing,
Yep.
people were just getting divorced.
Just a way out.
Exactly, like a loophole.
Right.
So God, through Malachi, is emphasizing like, hey, this is a serious covenant,
Wow. Yeah.
not something to be taken lightly.
That makes you think, like, what happens when things get tough in a marriage?
Right.
Is it just about, like, staying happy all the time?
Well, that's what they talk about, right?
Okay.
So in a contract, when you're not happy anymore, you might look for that escape clause.
Yeah.
But with a covenant, you got to lean in, work through it.
Like Adam and Eve, they had all sorts of trials.
Exactly. They went through so much, but they stayed together.
Right.
It's about commitment beyond feelings.
So it's not about avoiding the tough times. It's about weathering the storm together.
Precisely. And that idea of weathering the storm, it leads perfectly into their next point.
What's that?
Complementarity.
Complementarity. Okay, break that down for me.
All right, so think about the creation story.
Okay.
Adam's alone, right?
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Right. He needed a helper.
He needed a partner.
Right.
And that's where Eve comes in.
Okay.
And this podcast, they point out that men and women, they're designed to, like, complete each other.
Oh, okay.
Not in the sense that one's better,
Right.
but they each bring something different to the table.
They have unique strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. They complement each other.
So, like, together they create a whole picture.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And it's about sharing it all, the good, the bad, everything.
Makes sense.
And, they use this example from the story of Adam and Eve.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Remember when Eve, she kind of went off on her own?
Yeah, without talking to Adam.
Yeah, and it didn't end so well.
Yeah, that forbidden fruit thing.
Right. Not the best outcome there.
I don't know.
In this podcast, they use this example to talk about communication
Oh, interesting.
and partnership.
Like, it's not about one person calling all the shots.
Exactly. It's about working together.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Right, exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, balance through partnership.
So we've got this blueprint, this covenant, this two people becoming one thing,
Right.
complementing each other. But where does it go from there?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because the podcast, it suggests that this whole marriage thing,
Okay.
it's not just about the couple.
Oh, interesting.
It's bigger.
Like, what do you mean?
It impacts their relationships and society as a whole.
Wait, hold on. My marriage, like, affects the world around me.
That's what they're saying, yeah.
Wow.
We use this analogy of, like, family being the foundation of society.
Okay.
So when marriages are good, strong
Yeah.
families thrive.
Right.
And then those families raise kids who then go on to contribute to, the community.
Oh, I see. So it's like happy marriage equals happy kids equals happy community.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
It's a cool thought, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying that, a society built on strong marriages,
Right.
it creates peace and stability.
That makes you wonder, like, are some of the problems we see today
Yeah.
stemming from broken families and stuff?
It's definitely something to consider.
Hmm.
And then they go on to, like, what I think is the most profound point.
Okay, what's that?
Marriage as a reflection of God's glory.
Whoa. Okay, now that's a big one.
Right.
How does marriage reflect God's glory?
So they explain it like this.
Yeah.
When a marriage has love, mercy, grace,
Okay.
those things,
Yeah.
it becomes like a living example of God's character.
Oh, I see.
Like you're showing the world what God's love looks like.
So it's not just about saying, I do, and living happily ever after.
no.
It's about how you treat each other.
Exactly how you forgive, how
Yeah.
you choose to love.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's about those everyday actions that reflect God's character.
Like forgiveness, selflessness.
Exactly. That commitment, those things.
That makes it a true reflection of God's glory.
Precisely.
It's funny how we focus on the big romantic gestures, you know?
Yeah.
Like those might not be as important as the everyday stuff.
And you know what they said?
What?
They brought up the wedding feast in heaven
Oh, wow.
from Revelation.
Right.
That image, it's so powerful.
It
It
is.
shows how God sees marriage.
Hmm.
Not just something temporary, but eternal.
A wedding feast in heaven that really puts things into perspective.
It does.
It makes you realize that marriage is about way more than just two people.
Absolutely.
It's like you're part of something bigger,
Yeah.
something eternal.
And it leaves us with some big questions, Like, what does it really mean to follow this blueprint?
Hmm.
And how can we reflect God's love in our relationships?
And how does that impact the world around us?
Exactly.
It really makes you think, And even though this whole podcast was about marriage,
Yeah.
it got me thinking about, like, all kinds of relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Not just romantic ones, Like,
right.
what about family, friendships, even just, like, how we interact with strangers?
Absolutely.
Could we apply these same ideas,
I think so, yeah.
That love, mercy, grace.
That's a good goal.
It is, right?
It is.
Imagine if we approached all our relationships like that.
With that covenant mindset.
Yeah.
Committed, sticking it out no matter what.
Offering grace instead of judgment.
That's powerful.
It is, right? It's challenging,
Oh, for sure.
but it's also beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
It's about seeing the worth in every person and treating them with respect and kindness no matter what.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah, especially when it's hard. And, it makes you realize
What's that?
those small acts of kindness, forgiveness, they're not just nothing, They can be huge, like reflections of God's love going out into the world.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
Maybe it starts with just loving a little harder
Yeah, more intentionally.
in all our relationships.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with a little something to think about.
All right, I'm ready.
What if, just for one day, you tried to approach every interaction,
Okay.
every single relationship,
Yeah.
as a reflection of God's love? What would that look like?
It's a good question.
How would it change your perspective, your actions, your words?
Something to ponder for sure.
It is. It's a lot to think about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been great. Thanks for listening, everybody.